So last year, of course, I talked about several stories of the very adult kind, NFSW kind, if you will, when it comes to Tails being a ladies' man. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell you, honestly, hold on for a second. Almost got tongue-tied there almost right away, sorry. But like I said, I'm going to tell you right now, when it comes to some of these stories, it is just like, when you look at them, it is like, holy moly, how are these people able to come up with these kind of stories? Because it's really surprising. It's really surprising, like, how far they're willing to go. It really is. Now, what's interesting, I will admit that it did kind of inspire me to kind of create my own stories. And I have used certain softwares like To-Do Right, which is an AI-like system that helps you out in a way. Sorry about that, I had to take care of something. But anyway, I've been using To-Do Right, that's S-U-D-O, Right, to make some stories of my own. And I can tell you honestly right now, I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, why do they all sound very similar when they get to certain times? Well, let's just say some of these stories have rubbed off in a way creatively. Anyway, like I said, getting back to some of the stories I discovered, in this past year and talked about, they are surprising in their own right. I mean, you take a look at you take a look at one of the stories that's part of this category that MadeinNowhere calls the one-shot list, if you will. And basically, there's stories in there that really just make you go like, wow, I can't believe they were able to do that creatively. Like, I can't believe they were able to find a way around, this situation that we know about, from the Archie books or whatever. I can't believe they found a way to, work around that. And they do. For example, there's a story called My Friend's Wife, where, long story short, I think I've talked about it. Tails is spending a week with Knuckles and Julie Sue, who are married, and Tails is of age. And basically, Tails and Julie Sue, they get it on because, basically Julie Sue and Knuckles used to do it, but ever since they got married, it's not been that way anymore. And Julie Sue's like, hey, as long as Tails is here for the week, I'm going to get a piece of him. And it takes some coaxing and sweet talking, but she does get Tails to give in. And basically, they spend the first day of the week, while Knuckles is out and about taking care of stuff, taking care of each other. They spend most of the time Knuckles is out during the day getting groceries and things to, kind of please and take care of each other. Thankfully, it doesn't end up, thankfully the first story that I'll admit, I kind of requested a sequel to, a follow-up to. Thankfully it doesn't end in a way that basically, you're going to have Julie Sue and Tails be like, okay, how do we explain this to Knuckles? This is not going to be good, Thankfully it doesn't end that way. But if that's not enough, there are several other stories that came out, later on in the year that really just made me be like, okay, that's an interesting way to do this. Like there's one story, involving Whisper, Tangle, and Tails from the IDW Sonicverse. And basically this story takes place during the spring where, it's also heat season, if you know what I mean. And long story short, Tangle and Whisper, they are a couple, in this story. But Whisper, along with Tails individually, both, have to basically lock themselves away or find a way to not really, let the heat side of things take control of them, because if they do, whoever's around them pretty much is going to be in for a very painful, if not long spring, if you know what I mean. And what Tails does is he locks himself away, in his workshop for 3 months. And Whisper, well, she's planning to, move away at least for 3 months, so that she doesn't harm Tangle. And Tangle's like, nope, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to let you leave. So Tangle comes up with a solution, and she overhears over at Restoration HQ, oh, wait a minute, Tails goes through the same thing? interesting. Maybe I'll look into that. And what she does is she pleads, very pleadingly, begs and all that, uses, I guess you say, the tango puppy eyes, if you will. But basically she tells Tails, look, I need your help with this. I don't want to lose Whisper. She doesn't want to lose me. I know you're going through the same thing. And I feel that if both of you are together with each other in one room for 3 months, you'll be able to get it all out of your systems. And of course, Tails is a little reluctant because he's like, look, I can't do that to you. That's your girlfriend. That's your fiance, your wife, whatever. I can't do that. But Tangle's like, look, you won't be doing anything wrong because I'm going to be aware of it. I'll know exactly what you're doing. I'll be aware of what you're doing and everything, and I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to be jealous or anything because I'm the one coming up with this idea. And so basically what she does is she goes back home and tells Whisper, because Whisper's trying to pack up and leave so she doesn't harm Tangle. She tells Whisper, look, that's not going to be necessary. I have a solution. And she tells her, just like she told Tails, what the solution is. And just like Tails, Whisper's a little reluctant until, like I say, Tangle, basically, like she told Tails, says, look, nothing wrong is going to happen because I'm aware of it. I'm not going to get jealous because I'm the one coming up with this. So long story short, we get to the first day of spring. We get to the first day of spring, the first day of heat season, if you will. And Tails shows up and everything. Whisper is basically losing it because she's letting the more primal instincts take over and everything. So Tangle's wondering, okay, Tails, and Tangle's wondering and hoping Tails shows up soon, which he does. He does show up, and basically, as it's described in the story, he's starting to feel that primal instinct thanks to heat season taking over. And essentially, to get to the point, Tangle takes Tails and literally shoves him in Whisper's bedroom. Everything. Well, not Whisper's bedroom, but in the guest room, and locks the door, locks it all up. And essentially, both are staring at each other and everything, kind of doing like the nod, kind of like tilting their heads to the side, like they know who each other are and everything. But because the heat season, the primal instincts of the heat season are taking over their minds and everything, they just look at each other like, and they, they kind of do that tilting of the head, and then all of a sudden they just go right at it with each other. They, they end up kissing, they end up tearing each other's clothes off and everything, and they just get it on, in a very rough, hardcore kind of way, primal kind of way, to the point that, throughout they take breaks, to rest a little bit, to shower, but they still, afterwards will just keep going and going and going almost nonstop. And what's interesting is, you have Tangle, she has Whisper's mask so she can communicate with the Wisp. And she assures the Wisp, hey, don't worry. She assures them, don't worry about anything. I'm not going to be jealous. This was my idea. We'll be good. We'll be good for the next 90 days because, hey, we won't be the ones targeted, as, potential, as prey for them to, use and, have fun with. So, basically she's very confident, that things are going to turn out all right. And she's very careful, too. She's very careful, too, because there's several times, at least one time was described where she's trying to bring them food, but then she just she's just like, oh, I'll just leave it here for them for later. I'll just leave it out here for them for later and everything, because she knows that if she ends up in the room, she ends up even opening that room, then they may take a instant shine to her. Like they'll just notice her right off the bat and just drag her right in, and then basically that'd be the end of Tangle for the spring. And she doesn't want to risk that. And needs to do the Wisp. Need to do the Wisp and all that. So, she's very careful of how she approaches the door, like setting down food for them and all that. But yeah, they just get it on to the point that, both of them get pressed up against the window and everything and such. And like I said, it's basically, when it's all said and done, the way it's described, the whole room is basically torn to shreds. The whole room is just basically, torn to shreds. Looks like it's a tornado, a hurricane, ran through it and everything, just because of the fact of, Tangle and Whisper were letting out, this heat, this primal heat that was overtaking them and everything. They were just letting all that out, finally, and everything. And even when it got to like the last day or so, and they were starting to calm down, there was still enough in there to where they just, started to kind of like, get more into that, intimacy, to where they would kiss and just basically be like, okay, here's one more session, boom, if you know what I mean. And, basically like get it on like a regular couple, which they weren't. And what's interesting about this is afterwards, because they've been doing the thing for 90 days in a very rough, hardcore kind of manner, because they've been doing it, basically, long story short, Whisper, because this is also an alternate, this is a fan work, nothing official, fan work. Whisper, thanks to Tails, ends up basically getting ready to be a mother. We'll put it that way. And it's because of the fact that Tangle basically did not think about getting a certain pill or case of pills, if you know what I mean, for Whisper to take during all this to prevent such an event from happening. But Whisper, surprisingly, is okay with it. She wants this to, she's okay with it. She wants to be a mother alongside Tangle being the other mother. But they also want Tails to take responsibility too, because he's the one that caused it to happen, and everything. So he's going to take responsibility by being a father. And yeah, it's just, the ending really makes you laugh. And, the ending's kind of like, it really makes you laugh. It makes you kind of like, kind of happy and everything. But, like I said, it's very comedic too, because it's like, both, it's like Whisper's cool with it. Tangle, is accepting of it, although she's kind of, even though she's kind of upset at the fact that she forgot that one little thing that needed to be taken care of. Tails is like, oh my God, what did I do? But, all three of them are willing to basically be like, you know what? Whisper, if this is what you want, we're cool with it and everything. But you, Tails, you're going to stick around because you're the one that basically is responsible for that, child coming into the world. So you're sticking around, But yeah, that story is really interesting. It's really funny and everything. The way certain things are described, and like I said, I highly recommend you check it out if you ever get the opportunity to do so. But that's not the only story either. I'll tell you, another one that came out last year was Aunt and Nephew's Casual Night. And this one was really interesting because there's another story that also came out last year with a very similar premise, but different. Because you see, this one called Aunt and Nephew's Casual Night, centers around Tails and Bunny, and to an extent Antoine. Because you see, Bunny and Antoine, just like in the pre and post reboot versions of the Archie Sonic book, are married. Antoine and Bunny are married, just like they were in the pre and post reboot versions of the Archie Sonic book. But what's interesting about their marriage is they have an open marital relationship. And what that means, is both are, or at least one of them, I should say, is okay with the other, kind of getting it on with somebody else that could satisfy them in ways that their, original lover, the spouse cannot. So how this works basically in the story as it's described, Antoine and Bunny, they do get it on, but they do it in a very, romantic, very romantic, gentle, step-by-step kind of manner. Like they'll have a romantic dinner, and probably, make out on the couch after drinking some wine, and they'll just take it step by step from there to the point that they'll be, getting it on, in their bedroom. But the way Tails comes into play here is that Bunny also has a very, very rough and wild side. She likes to get satisfied as well. So Tails, basically aged up here as well, is brought in to fulfill that, that side, that wild side of Bunny that Antoine will not. And basically that wild side is, consisting of, that wild side consists of, getting it on in a very rough, hardcore kind of manner, to where basically, what happens in the story is that Antoine goes off, for the day. He doesn't come back till the next morning. And Tails comes over to keep Bunny company and keep her busy, and boy, does he keep her busy. Because what happens is Bunny is flirting with Tails. She's flirting with him throughout the day, and even to the point that they end up cleaning each other up in the bathroom, taking a shower together. And after they do that, basically Bunny's teasing and flirting is enough to awaken the wild beast, the wild beast inside of Tails, which did make itself prominent during the heat session in the previous story that I mentioned. But basically, this is a common trope when it comes to cyborg foxes and MadeinNowheres and Foxy Nights stories. Basically, Tails, who's known to be kind, gentle, and very intelligent and everything, when he gets put into these situations after enough flirting and teasing by a female, he ends up, unleashing this wild, bestial, predatorial side of him that just, takes control and starts, really just, getting it on and letting his instincts run completely wild. And with Bunny here, after, like I said, all that and, the showering together and all that, the flirting and teasing that she's done throughout the day, including in the shower, is just enough for Tails to allow that side of him to come out. And he's like, hey, enough of the role play of aunt and nephew. We're going to do the deed, and we're going to do the deed my way. And Bunny is more than satisfied, more than happy to make that happen. And what's interesting is after they dry up, they go, they leave the bathroom, but as they leave the bathroom, they're making out. They're kissing each other passionately, tongue in tongue and all that, all the way up to Antoine and Bunny's bedroom, where basically they proceed to, get it on in a very hardcore, rough style. And what's good about this too, opposite of the previous story, is that, Tails wants to make sure Bunny, is on the pill. And Bunny assures him that, don't worry, I've already let my husband know about that, so you have nothing to worry. You have nothing to worry about, so go ahead and let me have it raw style. And Tails is like, that's all I want to hear, and they just proceed to go from there. And everything. And when it's all said and done, Tails does kind of calm back down. That's another common trope about this, is that rough side of him, that rough, wild, bestial side of him will come out. But when the deed is done, he'll kind of revert back to his intelligent, more calmer, nicer side. And he does that here. And then he basically looks at Bunny and he's like, because as I mentioned at the beginning, Antoine is going to be gone until the next morning, so they're sleeping in bed together. And, Tails asks her, hey, I know Antoine's your husband and everything, but is it so wrong to say, I love you? And then Bunny's response is no, and she kisses him on the cheek and says, I love you too. And then they proceed to go to sleep, or they try to, until they get a video call from Sally, Princess Sally Acorn, who is also, I should say, aware of the situation, of the arrangement between, Bunny, Antoine, and Tails. and it kind of teases at the fact that, maybe I can get some time with Tails next weekend as well. And pretty much Tails agrees to do that, which baits you into seeing a continuation. Now I kind of did my own continuation on that as well, but if I link it here, I'll be in a lot of trouble, I'll put it that way. But yeah, I linked it as well, and you can check it out at archiveofourown.org at BWRoses98. But anyway, like I said, he does calm down and everything. And what I like about him as, kind of, wondering if it's okay to say he loves her, and then she responds by saying she loves him. That's kind of a nice little subtle way of saying that, because one of the ways it's described when they're doing the deed is basically that if Tails could, he would, that if Tails could, he would basically, I guess you could say have entrance to Bunny, if you know what I'm saying, forever. He would keep the entrance for Bunny, or to Bunny, the entrance to Bunny open forever for him. So anyway, what I like about this is when Tails says that and then Bunny responds the way she does, it's a very subtle way of them both acknowledging that they're in love with each other, that they want to be like boyfriend and girlfriend, but they are respectful of the fact that Bunny is married. But it alludes to the fact that if she wasn't, Tails and Bunny would probably be a thing. But yeah, it's a really interesting story that if you want to check it out, TheCyborgFox, or otherwise known as that one Tails writer, at inkbunny.net, but TheCyborgFox over at archiveofourown.org. He has stories up there. Check them out if you want. Another story that's similar with its premise, but not entirely, is the Queen's Relief. And I think I've talked about this before, but not really. But long story short, what it is that the plumbing at the Castle of Acorns is off. It's not working right. So they call upon Tails to come and fix it. Around the same time that Queen Alicia Acorn, Princess Sally's mom in the Archie comics, the pre-reboot Archie comics, wants to take a bath. She wants to clean herself up. And let's just say after Tails fixes that, one thing leads to another, and she, ends up teasing and getting flirtatious with Tails as well. The king is away taking care of other stuff, but, like I said, while the king's away, the queen will play, and she's flirting with Tails and everything after he's helped fix the water. And let's just say enough of that teasing and flirting opens up the wild beast that I mentioned previously inside Tails, and that's the one common trope. The one common trope and story idea that's very common with some of these. Like I mentioned, that when Tails has enough teasing and flirtatiousness done to him by a female counterpart, he just, unleashes that wild side of him, and basically his wild side, courtesy of his instincts, takes over. And that's what Alicia does. That's what Alicia does in the Queen's Relief story after Tails fixes the water and everything, the plumbing, the heating, and all that for the water. She, basically flirts with him, teases him, and all that to the point that he unleashes the wild side, and they get it on in the hot tub. And everything, to the point that, because he's letting his pure instincts take over, and according to the story, the only thing that's, on his mind, and that's on his mind in this state that he's in this wild state that he's in, is to mate, if you know what I mean. To mate. Basically, there's a line in there that he tells Alicia, because like I said, when she's teasing and flirting with him and basically helping to unleash and unlock this predatory wild beast, side of him, she's basically teasing him and flirting him by calling herself a prey and him a predator and all that. So anyway, to get back on point here, Tails basically tells her, as they're getting ready to do the deed, and everything, he tells her, you know what, Alicia, you're right. I am a predator. And you know what we like to do during these moments? We like to take what's ours. And so I'm going to make you mine. In other words, what he's saying in this mode, in this wild, predatorial, bestial mode, is that he's going to essentially claim her as his. In other words, he's going to, when he says, I'm going to make you mine, he's saying, I'm going to claim you. You're going to belong to me now. And basically, they just get it on from there, man. They just get it on from there. And, like I said, one thing leads to another, and it's just like, bombs away with every moment, I'm telling you. But what's interesting, though, is at the end. Because once again, after they do the deed and all that, Tails does revert back to his normal self. And and he's allowed, and he ends up leaving. And I think they have one last kiss before they part. But what's interesting is the king shows up, just like I think moments after, and it's alluded to the fact that both her and the king, King Max that is, or King Nigel, whatever name you want to go with, both acknowledge what the other does. That's right. Both the king and the queen, King Max, King Nigel, and Queen Alicia, they acknowledge what the other does because they have an open marital relationship. In other words, the king knows that Alicia, did the deed with somebody, and he asks who, and the only thing he does is ask who it is, and she'll tell him. And then he kind of does the same thing. She'll wonder, okay, well, who did you get it on with? And he alludes to who he did it with, or who he's going to do it with. So they have a very unique, open marital relationship. So yeah, there's always a twist there. There's always a twist. Sometimes, or always a catch to these stories, and sometimes that catch or twist you find out at the start or at the end. So I do like that. But there was one more that came out, and it came out at the start of this year too, and this one's interesting. This one is called Beach Mishap, and it's also by, I think, TheCyborgFox. And essentially, long story short, it takes place another time, another place, supposedly in the Archie Sonic world, but another time, another place. And Sally and Sonic are not an item, but it's alluded to that Sonic and Amy are an item. That's what it's alluded to, not saying it is. But Sally and Sonic are not an item anymore. Tails is aged up. And let's just say Sally takes the opportunity to take advantage of that. So what she does is that she wants some sunscreen applied, but I think she didn't bring some or something, I'm not really sure. And what she does, she starts flirting with Tails and everything to the point that she wants them to go up onto a cliff, that's above the beach and everything. And, that's what they do. And then after that, they end up in a tree because, Sally climbs up onto a tree and everything for her and Tails to, have some privacy. And let's just say things go from there. They escalate from there and all that. And again, again, just like before, Sally's flirting and teasing of Tails is enough to awaken that wild beast inside of him to the point that essentially he just lets go and basically gets it on with Sally to the point basically that he ends up doing something that even surprises her, but she relents to finally fulfill that satisfaction she needs. And long story short, she gets the satisfaction she needs, but it comes with a price that she's glad to have or glad to pay, a price she's glad to pay. Even if her father gets a little upset, but at the fact that she paid this price, but she knows will calm down later since he realizes, hey, she's not dating Sonic anymore, and now she'll be dating Tails. So basically, yeah, it just goes from one. It basically just it's one of those situations that when you read this story, you're like, okay, that's one interesting way for Sally and Tails to have a special quality time, if you know what I mean. And what's interesting again is they both, after it's done and Tails comes back down, they do climb off the tree, gather their stuff, kind of get their beach clothes together, or get the beach clothes back on and everything. They get the beach clothes on, bikinis and shorts and all that back on, and then head back to the beach. But what's interesting about this, and again, this is another twist, another subplot, if you will, that gets added to it, is they don't know they had an audience. Because you see, Bunny Rabbit, sees them sneaking off at first and wondering, okay, what's going on there? Because at the same time, she's realizing, okay, Sonic and Amy went to the chili dog stand to get some food, and they haven't come back yet. She's assuming, it's because it's a long line, but we as readers might have a good idea of what's really going on with Sonic and Amy and why they haven't come back yet. But to get to, Tails and Sally, the twist here is Bunny, like I said, the subplot, if you will, Bunny notices them sneaking off, and then because she has these long, her long rabbit ears, I should say, she's able to pick up on things more sensitively than everybody else. So she starts hearing what's going on and thinking to herself, man, Sally is one lucky, what. Sally's one lucky you-know-what. And then, out of curiosity, she goes to under the cliff and everything and starts, hearing something going on, wondering, okay, what's happening? So what she does is she goes over to their tent, to her, Sally, and Nicole, because Nicole's there too, but in a portable form. She goes over to their tent, shuts it, kind of zips it up so that, she has privacy, her and Nicole, and she turns the portable computer on, and gets Nicole to materialize in front of her in her length form. And she asks Nicole, hey, can you use your spy camera or your spy vision or whatever to see what's going on with Sally and Tails? And Nicole, a little taken back by this, does that. She's a little taken back, wondering, okay, why would you need me to do this? And then once she sees what Bunny is asking her, and once she sees, what she sees, because again, Bunny is asking her, and she's a little taken back, saying, okay, I don't know why you need me to do this. And all of a sudden, as soon as she sees it, she's like, oh, and yeah, basically, Tails and Sally end up having an unexpected audience that they're not aware of. But yeah, that is another kind of little twist to these stories, to where it's like they're not aware of the fact that they're being watched by two of their best friends, and two of the best friends are kind of getting a little turned on themselves by it. Anyway, again, it's an interesting story that I do recommend. If you go to archiveofourown.org, go to the TheCyborgFox, or go to inkmoney.net, that one Tails writer, check these stories out. You'll be asking and wondering to yourself the same thing, like how and why, and and stuff like that. It'll just get your brain wondering, like, okay, that was interesting, to read. But yeah, in closing, guys, it's been an interesting, year of 2023 when it comes to these very interesting, stories involving Tails and girls and some of the girls of the Sonic series, whether it's IDW or Archie. Very interesting. I'm not going to link any of them because I don't want to get in trouble. But I will say this, go to archiveofourown.org, find MadeinNowhere, that's one name, MadeinNowhere, or TheCyborgFox, that's one name as well, or go to inkmoney.net and find that one Tails writer, that's one name, and you'll see these stories, and you could judge for yourself whether or not these are stories that will make you go, okay, that was interesting to read, wondering what they'll come up with next. Or if they're the kind of stories that might, who knows, inspire you to do your own. Let me know down. But anyway, guys, that's all I'm going to say. I do apologize for any pauses or rambling here in this audio video. But let me know what your thoughts are. Comment down below. Live chat during the premiere. Like the video. And until next time, I'm out.